OpenBot looks like the Grokbot concept rebuilt for actual company work. Give an AI coworker a channel, a browser, files, tools, and a job. But the glossy demo is not the most important part. The real story is the control plane between a model and the systems it can touch. And there is one catch hidden behind the open source label. I reviewed both official demos, the full repository, the architecture, the required license, current pricing, and the code checks. Here is what OpenBot proves today, what it does not, and who should actually try it. OpenBot is CopilotKit's company-facing agent platform, not a new foundation model and not just another chat window. Each coworker gets a persistent channel, a role, a set of approved skills, and access to tools an administrator has granted. The interface keeps one thread per agent, so research, operations, email, and company knowledge do not collapse into one endless conversation. The bridge underneath is AGUI, the open event protocol CopilotKit maintains. That means a company can register a built-in agent, a LangGraph endpoint, a Mastra agent, or another backend that speaks the same protocol. The pitch is simple. Bring the agent you trust, then give employees a consistent surface to reach it. The launch demo starts with an operations coworker. The user asks it to pull the accounts their team owns from an internal back office. A live computer panel opens beside the conversation. The agent reaches the sign-in screen, and the result comes back as 52 accounts, 36 with named contacts. The next request turns those records into a recency chart. 8 contacted in the last week, 14 within 30 days, 19 within 90 days, and 11 older than that. Then OpenBot produces 36 personalized outreach drafts for review. This is solid causal proof of the vendor's intended workflow: request, visible computer activity, structured result, analysis, then a reviewable action. It is not independent proof that the source data was correct or that any external message was sent. The repository demo gives us a different use case. A user addresses my agent and asks it to browse Hacker News, then return the front page as a table grouped by category. The product opens a real browser surface, gathers the page, and renders the response as a component instead of a block of prose. The user then types /bar chart, and the same result becomes a visual breakdown. This matters because OpenBot treats components as governed tools. Compiled React components can ship with the app, while sandboxed components can be authored in the admin playground and published without a rebuild. Every call still checks that the component exists, is published, and has the data function grants it needs. Then the demo switches coworkers. The agent picker moves from the general assistant to email manager. A status request returns a compact inbox summary. The user asks it to tell a contact that the client meeting was successful, and the interface reports the email as sent. A follow-up about pending meetings produces an approval card to confirm a meeting with David. This is a third product surface, communication work with a human decision point. The visible approval state is useful evidence of the design. But the clip alone cannot prove the external email was delivered or that every risky action is forced through approval. Those claims need architecture and deployment testing, not just a polished recording. Now the part that makes OpenBot more interesting than a themed chat app. The documented stack combines a React interface, a HANO API server, PostgreSQL with Vector, CopilotKit intelligence for durable threads and real-time state, a GUI-bot endpoints, browser computer containers, and a supervisor that can give each bot its own Chromium profile and workspace. Browser, file, and MCP actions do not go straight from the model to the tool. They return through the server gateway. The server resolves the target, evaluates the current policy, records the decision, and only then forwards the action. Deny rules win. A missing policy permits nothing. A malformed configured policy stops server startup. The gateway also records failures after an allowed action. Credential values are documented as encrypted at rest and redacted from audit events. These are thoughtful source-level controls, not a security certification. A real deployment still needs its own threat model, network boundaries, key management, and testing. OpenBot also makes a useful distinction between skills and capabilities. A skill is reusable instruction, something a person can invoke with a / command. Personal skills attach only to bots their author owns. Deployment skills belong to administrators. MCP tools are different because they can reach outside systems, so administrators grant them explicitly. Each MCP call checks the grant, runs through the same policy engine, and lands in the audit trail. The curated catalog currently names Atlassian, Box, Slack, Salesforce, and ServiceNow. Unknown or custom tools are treated as writes unless OpenBot can positively classify them as reads. Bring your own agent support comes from AgeUI. The surface does not force one agent framework, but it does force every action back through the company-controlled boundary. The setup is open source, but it is not just clone and click. The README asks for Bun 1.3 or newer, Docker, Soph, Python, curl, a CopilotKit intelligence project and license, a model credential, and about 8 GB of free disk space. The start script brings up PostgreSQL, and the shipped bot and computer services, applies migrations, starts the API on port 3001 and the app on port 3010, then checks health routes. Docker Compose is the evaluation path. The product page says Helm is the supported production path. Here is the commercial catch. The application repository is MIT licensed, but OpenBot will not start without CopilotKit intelligence. The README points evaluators to a managed service license, while the OpenBot FAQ says the production platform underneath is commercial. CopilotKit's public pricing lists developer as free, pro at $39 a month, team at $100 per seat each month, and enterprise at custom pricing. VPC or on-prem deployment is listed under the higher plans. So yes, the app code is open. No, this is not a completely free standalone enterprise stack. OpenBot is also extremely early. The repository was created on August 17, 2026, and the current release is version 0.0.1. At this review cutoff, it had 49 stars, 2 forks, and 1 open issue. The checkout contains 353 tracked files and just over 50,000 lines across the counted source, configuration, and documentation files. I installed the exact reviewed commit. Lint and type checks completed successfully. The first plain test run passed 478 tests, skipped 5, and failed 71 because the expected OpenBot PostgreSQL role and schema were not provisioned. That failure was environmental, but useful. The database setup is part of the product, not an optional detail. I then started the documented vector service and applied migrations before rerunning the suite. The final database-backed result is recorded in the project QA report and shown on screen. First-party Google Drive and OneDrive connectors are still described as in development. This is a serious architecture at an initial release stage, not a finished appliance. My verdict: OpenBot is one of the more credible attempts to turn agent chat into a company-operated control surface. The strongest idea is not the interface. It is the governed path from intent to policy to audit to action, plus the option to bring any AgeUI agent behind that path. Engineering teams with real infrastructure, compliance needs, and a specific internal workflow should read the source and run a scoped evaluation. Start with one low-risk bot, one allowed tool, and one measurable outcome. Teams looking for a free one-click desktop assistant, a finished connector marketplace, or production security they do not have to own should wait. The two things to watch are connector maturity and how CopilotKit packages intelligence for real deployments. If you want more source-grounded reviews that separate the demo from the deployable product, subscribe to TechWealth Hub. The repository, launch post, product page, and pricing page are linked below.